Okay, now I'm working on jumping in on more chroma in those lighter values. Fun. This is a Terry Ludwig, I think it's called Stoplight Green. It's a little cooler maybe than I want, but I can layer a little something else that's more yellow on top of it later, but at least kind of helps me punch things in where I need to. I have to say, this is a very strange and surreal experience for me to be filming and talking to you as if you're here. I wish you were here. I wish we were all together. That's been one of the most difficult things with this pandemic, is just the way it has interfered with connections. We're for the most part, humans are social animals, and the pandemic has really interfered with that in a big bad way. I'm sorry for that. Now, that being said, I'm going to skip back. I just noticed a leaf that I left out that's really important. He's kind of an olive green one, and one of the reasons it's so important is because not dark enough, he overlaps this guy, and it's really important to me to make sure you have that elements overlap each other. I just think that's really important. So that's what this guy is doing, and he's, instead of being fat and on where you're seeing the whole shape, he's kind of on edge here. And some of that same color will be back in here. Again, I'm not quite warmed up enough to do this sketchy part back there just yet. But I do see some other places this olive can go. Again, olive I find is a great foliage color. It's cooler than light yellow green, but it's warmer than blue green, so it can either be warm or cool depending on what it's next to. And that's the thing about color, is it's all very relative. What color something is depends on what's next to it. I mean, there is some local color. There is also a lot of relative color. And I don't mean relative like aunts and uncles. I was working with olive. There are going to be some other places that will have olive, but it's enough for now. Now I'm also ready to just get even more chroma in the part that's glowing. Terry Ludwig has a set called Vibrance, and they're all based on the pigment quinacridone, which was a new term to me. And some of the colors in there will be perfect, I think, for getting in the really intense chroma in the backlit parts of the back flower in my painting. And what's wonderful about these sticks is you can just hold them up and go, oh, is that a good color? I think I need to go brighter. I mean, look at this color. It's just gorgeous. And I think it's perfect for here. The vibrants are a little harder than most of the rest of Terry's pastels. They're still wonderful. You just have to press a little harder if you need a really solid stroke. Look at that. Oh! Because I'm getting closer to a finish, I can really press and get a little more detail here. I just want to make sure that this gap and this one aren't all the same, because this is an organic flower, meaning it's an organic thing, not that it's not about whether it had pesticides or not. That's a whole different thing. This is just that it's random and it's not like symmetrical everywhere. So just want to make sure I have some variation. And I'm really pushing like a corner right now to get that intense color. Now there's really nothing down here in this other one that is as intense, but I'm going to hint at it a little bit just so you get the notion that these are also places that are backlit. I just don't want you to spend your time lingering, because I've decided that this part is really my story. It's this, and then how the design comes down to here and over. The design leads you to these other places that are glowing. Wish me luck. Now again, there are places back here that are just as intensely lit, as backlit as these, but because they're farther away, I want to paint them less intensely because I want them to visually go back in space. That's just important to me. You know, it isn't for everyone, and you know, there are lots of different ways to paint and do things, but this is what brings me a lot of joy. Now I will say, normally if I'm painting with my Heilmann box, I have a little tray that I set the pastels I'm using in it so I can pick them up again easily. Here with this setup, I don't do that, but what I do is just set these sticks on end in the box, and that way I know it's one I've used before. There's just something about the visual array of all of these boxes open that I just could not bring myself to cut them and put them on a cookie sheet. I have cookie sheets for other things, but not for these. It's just too inspiring just to see the whole array. So here's this really glowy stuff. Now, it's not just one color. Now I'm going to use a little more orange, because the farther down in here you get, the brighter it gets. Now nothing over here has that. These are like the hottest spots to me in the whole place. I may have to correct them some more when I come back, but for now that's good. There's also, I think, a little red orange. Especially in the front, kind of as a transition color from this really intense to where it curves, the petals curve that way away from you. When you look at these flowers, and if someone were to ask you what color are they, you would say pink. hot pink, because that's what they are. When they're lit like this though, that local color of hot pink shows up in only a few places, and the rest of it is either cooler, warmer, darker, or lighter. So those other colors, the darker or the lighter, the warmer, the cooler, helps set the context for what the local color really is. So even this red orange is not a local color. However, I think it helps bring you to see that the hot pink is. I don't know if that makes sense, but it does to me. And again, nothing down here is that bright, but I'm just gonna put a little hint of it just for fun. I can always quiet it down if I need to. Now I'm still using the same really intense color in the back petals, but I'm doing it much lighter in pressure so that they aren't jumping forward as much, I hope. I do keep a Viva paper towel, and normally I would be like cleaning my hands and wiping more often. Instead, I'm talking to you, and so I'm using my hands instead of cleaning them, and instead of cleaning the pastels. There's a little center part to that Protea that is very distinct and very light in color. Let me see if I can't now articulate that a little better. It's very light in value, but it's still very warm. Let's see if this one will work. That's still a little too dark, but it might do for just the first round. And again, remember, it's over here, not completely exactly in the middle. And there's a little of that same color over here, but just a hint of it. Because now, what I didn't mention is that the light is coming from here. It's coming from the left side up here. On a clock, it would be like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. So I really wanted very intense light and then some shadow on this side. And I really wanted this big part of this to be in shadow. It's just so pretty when it did that. See, this is light in value, but it's still too cool. I think I'm gonna have to, well, maybe this will work. Here's one last new pastel to try. See how that looks too light? I'm gonna go back to what I was using before and quiet that down. I'm just gonna have to go over into, I'm gonna have to shop in the Ludwig section. I think maybe this is it. See how much warmer that is? There are some hints of that on the edges elsewhere too, but I think this is exactly what I needed for this inside part. and just say there will be pieces like that later too. But I'm going to set this in like this so I can remember which one it was. That really works nicely. Need some little bit darker red, dark cool red, which would be like red violet. Back in here in a few places. So it can help hint in a little bit of the detail and how those, what the shape of those petals are, the shapes are. In front here too. And by getting some of this same color back here, it helps define this area, that little front, or that center part also. Now I'm going to look around. I do think this same color is down here in the stem. Notice I haven't really paid much attention to the stem once I established them, because they're just not an important element right now. But now it's kind of fun to come in and start putting in little pieces of it, of them. Oh, that olive green. Again, this branch I put in earlier. I think I see some of that same olive green in here where it's lit. Not backlit, but front lit. And here's a little bit lighter version of that olive green. It's not as strong in chroma as this, but it still is there. Again, this is kind of tropical, and so I'm thinking of it as sort of an, it's exotic and kind of mysterious, at least for landlocked Oklahoma. So I'm kind of playing that up a little bit in how I'm doing some of these. I want it to be kind of sketchy and dramatic, and I wouldn't call these Proteas drama queens, but some of the drama of that, the drama is certainly a key word in how I want to depict them. So gestures and strokes, and let's see. Some of these leaves are kind of translucent, and so some of that red is coming through from the petals to them. And now I can start putting that in. You don't see it down in here because you don't have as much strong light. It's just the leaves that are right next to these petals, strongly lit. Okay. These leaves need to warm up. They need more yellow to them. So let's see if I can't warm them up a little. You start by trying this, just to layer a little bit on top of the stoplight green. Ooh, I think that's going to work. You know, this is kind of a focal point in here, so a little detail is good. I really like using the side of these. Just makes a nice casual but beautiful mark. And then I'm using the corner if I want to put in some detail. Like there's a little bit of a seam that's kind of that same color. A seam here. just using that edge, pressing really hard. Same thing here, but I want to not get too detailed because I don't want your eye to spend a lot of time there. These have that same edge. Again, you know, it's tempting to just start putting them in now, but I'm not going to. Resist, resist. I'm going to lighten one edge here with that same one, just to help you know it's in front. Same thing here, make sure that edge has that same glow. All right, I think I'm through with that for now, but I'm going to leave it on edge so I can find it again. Yeah, I really need to also get a little of it here. Okay, that's better. Now that I've punched up this chroma needs to come up as well, but not this far up. Certainly more so than it is. So find something a little less chroma, a little cooler. But still more intense than what I already have down here. Just looking for some little pools of light that I can enhance. A little of it down in here on the back side. Okay, I'm going to stop and look again.